Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. My name is Bo Jensen, and today we're going to look at what locomotives and passenger cars and so on from other brands can we actually run on a Märklin layout. So I'm going to look on a Märklin layout that's digital and using Märklin C-Track. So I often get the question, what locomotives can I buy from other manufacturers, PIKO, Brawa, Roco, and so on? Which can they actually drive on the Märklin Track and so on? So the short answer is actually yes. For the locomotives, it's very, very important that you get a locomotive that supports tree rail, which means that it actually has a slider underneath to pick up the track power from the center rail of the Märklin Track. For passenger cars or freight cars, for the most part they will just straight on run unless they have a need to pick up power, like this one here, for example, which is a passenger car. So if you actually have light inside, then it needs to pick up power, but otherwise it will not. So I will only really look at what is available out there and so on. So the idea with this video is to give you an idea of what's available out there and what can you find and buy. I'm not going to talk about the quality of one brand versus another and so on. However, generally I can tell you for the brands I'm talking about in this video, I usually don't have a problem. If it's some of the more modern ones, if it's some old used ones, let's say 10, 20 years or even more old, then maybe you could get into a challenge. Enjoy the video. So what is the first thing you need to think about when running rolling stock from other brands on your Märklin layout? Well, the first thing you have to think about is the Märklin tracks are different. So if we look at the Märklin C-Track, in the center of the tracks there's actually a third rail. So what's special about Märklin tracks is there's 3 rails on there, and you also see that if you look at the turnouts as well, where there is a special configuration around the turnout. So everything else about the track is actually HO scale, and everything else is also compatible with all the other brands. So the good thing is that all the brands over the years have agreed on a standard for how the track should be and how well they should support it and how the wheels should be as well. So there's good compatibility between all the brands. One thing you have to think about though is older rolling stock. So if you buy a really, really old locomotive and put on your C-Track or a passenger car or freight car, there could be problems, or it might not run as well. But I will say though that the C-Track are generally well backwards compatible. One thing you have to think about though is if you go into the older tracks such as the Märklin M track or the metal track, they don't follow of course modern standards because they are very, very old tracks. So you could have trouble with new rolling stock on those. K-Track doesn't follow the modern standard as well as the C-Track, so there can occasionally be some issues there as well. Why are the Märklin tracks different? Well, the Märklin track has the third rail, and that's actually because the power is given differently. So there's power going through the rails, and then there's power going through the third rail at the center. So that's typically the red wire or the B you connect to that. And if we look at that, why is that? Because the rolling stock, in order to pick up power, actually will pick it up from the wheels and pick it up from the slider as well. So you will see here that the rails will actually be the 0 or the brown, and that will give power to the rolling stock, while the center rail will be the red or the B, and that will give power to the rolling stock. In order to pick up power there need to be a slider, and this slider picks up the center rail. And that's really what makes it different when you have Märklin compared to some of the other HO brands. There needs to be a way to pick up the center rail or the third rail. So it basically means that the locomotives needs to support the third rail. You can call them three-rail locomotives, and in order to do that, they need to have a slider to pick up the power from the center rail. So if we look at this little steam engine here from my starter set, you can see it actually has a slider in the center in order to pick up the third rail. By the way, don't forget that this also applies for cars that needs to have power. They also need to have a slider. So examples of this could be cranes, it could be snow plows with functionality, it could be light for passenger cars, and so on. They all need to have the slider. Another thing you need to think about is the length of the rolling stock, especially on the tight curves, and that's especially for the radius 1. Of course, this is not something unique for Märklin layouts. Other manufacturers have the same thing. However, you will often find the R1 curves on a Märklin layout where people that do layouts with other brands, they often try to avoid the R1. So what is the problem with the R1 curve? Well, here you have an example of a very long passenger car. This is actually a PIKO one on an R1 curve. And what can we see here? Well, there's actually a large overhang. If you notice, the center of the passenger car here is actually completely next to the track. In the same fashion, if you look at the front of this car, which is a steering car, actually is sticking out as well. If you notice it, here is actually where the bogie is, so it's on the track. The bogie is over here as well, so it's on the track. So you can have passenger cars or even locomotives or freight cars that where it says, yes, it's supported on the R1 curves, but when you put it on there, yes, it runs through the curve, but there's a large overhang. And what is the problem with the overhang? Well, the problem with the overhang is you can't pass signals, for example. So if you put signals close to the track, or let's say prototypically close to the track, or if you use standard Märklin signals, for example, they actually can connect directly to the track, and then they have a certain distance from the track. That distance can be a problem when you got really long rolling stock and you are on the tight curves. The other thing you have to think about is if you're using the Märklin contact track for train detection when you're doing automation, then remember from the video about the contact track, so I'll put a link in the description below. That video talks about how you detect it, and it's really detected by the wheels short-circuiting the rails. So the rails are disconnected electrically, and then when the wheels comes across the rails, they will actually short-circuit this, and that's the way it's detected. This is not the same way you do for DCC as an example, because you cannot short-circuit it there because there is no third rail. So in order to still be able to detect using the contact track method, which is one of the preferred methods for Märklin layouts, you need to have wheels that actually short-circuit. So the different manufacturers actually supply typically what they call AC wheels, or you can fix the wheels such that they actually do the short circuit. Now, if we look at some of the popular brands that are Märklin compatible and see how do they indicate these different things. So what is it that's important? Well, the important thing is that it's three-rail or AC as most call it, that it's digital. You need to consider if you're using radius 1, will the rolling stock actually fit on there? So that's both with respect to can the rolling stock run on the radius 1, but also the length of the rolling stock. So if it becomes too long, will it actually be able, or will it hang over the curve too much, so we'll hit signals and other things. By the way, it's not only signals, it can also be tunnel entrances and other stuff. Finally, then you need to think about the AC wheels if you're thinking about automation. Don't forget that the AC wheels is really only a problem for the passenger and freight cars, because if you have locomotives and they're made for 3-rail, then the wheels are already okay. So let's go to the Brawa website first and look at an example here. So here we have an example of a steam engine. So this is the 9810 steam engine from Brawa. And as you can see, when we scroll down here, you can see there's many different, or there's 3 different versions of the steam engine here indicated. And actually the thing you need to look for when it's on a Brawa website is that it's a AC or let's say the curly line. So you can see here it says alternating current. It has it here, but it also says it's digital. So when it's alternating current here on the Brawa website and it's digital, then it will actually be compatible with Märklin and it will run with your mobile station and central station as well. On top of that, we can also see it says min here, so that's the minimum radius. Typically that's given in millimeters, so the minimum radius here is 360 millimeters. So the R1 is 360 millimeters. So if it says 360 or 358, which it typically do, then it's absolutely no problem. And the final thing you should look for is the length. And you can see that's indicated here with that pictogram here. That's the length over the buffer. And you can see this is a relatively short one. So if we take another example from Brawa, so that was a locomotive. So let's look at a passenger train. So here we have a twin decks, double-decker car. And you can see this one as well comes in different variations. Now, this is unusual that there's actually an AC version of this one. Why is that? It's because it comes built in with interior lighting, as you can see here. It also comes built in with a decoder. So the idea here is that this one has everything pre-mounted. If it was a passenger car that didn't have built-in light, then there might only be one version out there, and then that's also okay. You can still run it on the Märklin Track. The only thing is then it cannot pick up the power, right? So what's interesting to look at here, you see that the minimum radius here is 360, so that's good. It will run on the R1. It can easily run on larger as well. Remember, I'm only looking for this if I have R1 on my layout. If I have larger radial curves, it's not a problem. However, so you can see it can run on the R1, but the length is 303 millimeters. So this is rather long, this one here. So it would actually mean that even though it can run on the R1, it will actually hit your signals. So if we go back to the summary I made here, you can see when you go on the Brawa website, they got different types of pictograms, so you need to look for the curly one indicating alternate current or AC. You need to look that it says digital. If it says digital extra, it has extra features. Then if you're using R1, then you need to look at the middle 2 pictograms here, namely what is the radius of the curve. Can it go all the way down to 360? And what is the length? So could I have a problem here? So if it's indicated as here, it can run on the R1, but it's probably too long to actually not hit the signals and or tunnel entrances. As a rule of thumb, when you get up near 280 to 300 millimeters, you can have a problem. Again, this can depend a little on where is the boogie on the car or on the locomotive. If you are having a freight or passenger car, there will usually be indicated also which wheels could you buy extra in order to support the automation as well. So let's look at another model manufacturer. So that's ESU. And let's go look at an example here. So this is from their upcoming class T18. And if we scroll down here, you can see different versions coming out. So what's typically unique about ESU, you can see that here at the bottom. It actually says AC/DC. So what's unique about ESU is they make their locomotives so it doesn't really matter if you have whatever track you have. Do you have 2 rail? Do you have 3 rail? Do you have analog? Do you not have analog? Do you have digital? Do you have non-digital? So typically, and this is true for all, let's say, the recent ESU ones. Honestly, I don't know about the oldest or first locomotives, if that's the same. But they have absolutely no problem with running on AC or DC. Typically on the ESU website, you also have to go look at the technical details. In here, you will be able to see stuff, and here you can see it at the end. Here you can see what the minimum radius is, and you can see what the length over the buffers is. So you can see this one is not a long one, and it can run on our R1 because it's a minimum radius of 360 millimeters. If we go back to our overview, typically on the ESU, when it says they are typically all the moderns compatible with. If not, look for the word AC. They typically specify digital as either DCC, Motorola, or the M4. So the M4 means it's compatible with MFX, Motorola, that's the standard Märklin, and DCC. Well, if you have the latest versions of the central station or the mobile stations, they also support DCC. For considerations on the radius 1 curves, it's typically written in words with either the minimum radius, it's written as the length over buffers. Notice for the example I gave you, they actually wrote it in English. Even though you go to their website and choose English, sometimes they don't write everything in English. So then you have to look up the words you see here as well. For their freight cars and passenger cars, they will also give you the optional AC wheel set as well if you need the contact track train detection. Another popular brand that works with Märklin is PIKO. Let's look at an example from PIKO. So now the challenge with PIKO and figuring out AC and figuring out English often is that PIKO, as you can see here, has a lot of flags, so you can change to English. However, if it's a Märklin compatible, or like they call it AC, the model number might not even be searchable. So if you're looking here and searching on the website, oh, sorry, I'm in German. Let me just choose the English here. So I go over here and you can see it says search item. And I know that there is something, a particular number in AC. You might not be able to find it, but you can find the entire description for non-AC. So that makes it very, very difficult. Let me go here to the latest news. So what I will do here is look at the August items here. So this is what latest came out from PIKO, and we scroll down. And there you can see an example here. So here's an example of class 340 from, I believe, the Czech Republic. And you can see here it also has the little wave, or so that's for the alternating current or the AC. So this particular locomotive you can both get in an alternated current version and not. Now this one here I would be a little careful because it doesn't say it's digital, so you have to look this up. If you search for the number here 51393, you will actually not find it on the website. but the 51392 you might find. So let's go ahead and try that. So 51392, and we search for this. And we look, it actually did not find it. Let's try on the German side. 51392. We search for it. It's actually not there. So that's not too untypical with PIKO's website. It can be difficult to find the things. Always, when in doubt, also don't forget to talk to your favorite model train dealer shop as well. So we can go back here. So PIKO is a little more difficult. It typically says that it's alternating current, Wechselstrom, or something like that. It has the little wave here. Typically you would see if it's digital, they will talk in the text about a decoder. If you manage to find about that particular one, it might say Plux 22 sound decoder or something like that. So if it has the wave and it talks about a decoder, then it's good to go on the Märklin with digital. Again, you will typically see words like the minimum radius and the length over the buffer, or in German, here the LUP or Länge über Puffer. Yeah, my German is not the best. And for the cars, you would see the AC wheel replacement as well. Now for Roco, let's look at an example of Roco. When you go on their website and look around, it's actually very clear indicated. So you can see this one is AC. So this is the AC version of it. And when you go down under the additional information, you will also see here we go down and we find electrical. You see control, it says AC. It says digital decoder, yes, it's in there. It says sound, yes, it's in there. So this one, I would say the Roco website is very easy to figure out. They clearly indicate it, where on the PIKO one it's little more difficult. On the Roco one it is. It also says the length over the buffer here, and you can see it's a relatively short one. And it also talks here, if we go up, about the minimum radius as well. So all in all, this one will also work as well. So if you go back to the overview, for the Roco, they typically have the AC logo. They talk about a decoder or control. It's typically written in words with the radius and so on. I rarely find it written in German only. I think if you look at some very, very old model numbers, maybe, but at least for the last 10 years, I would say everything is in English as well. Talks about the length over the buffers, and it talks about the AC wheel replacement. All right, that was a few hints and some examples of what you can find out there, how you look up on the manufacturer's website, whether or not they're compatible enough. Just to repeat, the important part is that if it's a locomotive, it's built for tree rail. Different manufacturers put different things on the box, on their website. They call it AC, Wechselstrom, alternating current, and so on. If you're using digital, make sure there's a decoder inside. Usually look for the word decoder. Even in German, they use the word decoder. For the passenger cars or freight cars, for the most part, they can just go on. No problem there. However, if you are using tight curves, so the R1 curves, then consider what happens when it is longer passenger cars. So here I have an example of, this is the Märklin version and this is the PIKO version, and it's actually the same car. Notice how big a difference there is in the length. And that's actually because Märklin made it such that it will fit on R1 even when the signals are in place. That also means this is not a true HO scale. It's not a true 1/87. It's actually 1/93.5, while this one is in the true scale. So Märklin does this trick so you never ever get in trouble. Other brands, some do it and some don't. So you need to think about that. Now, if you noticed, if we had the long wagon here or passenger car, the challenge was really the overhang. The challenge was what is close to the track in the corner. So here's actually a hidden trick to you. Try when you are using R1 and building your layout, don't put anything close to the corner or close to the track in the tight turns. If you do that, then you actually don't have a problem. So when you look up on the website, there's two things you need to think about. One is the length, and the other one is whether or not it will actually run on an R1 curve. And that has more to do with, can the bogies, for example, turn enough to actually get around the curve. The last thing you have to think about is the wheels. If you're using automatic train detection using contact track, then if it's DC wheels, then they are actually insulated from each other. If it's AC, then they actually short circuit the rails such that they will be detected. So there's a couple of things you need to think about. But I would say in general, there's no problem. One thing I haven't said is the other thing that can cause you challenges is the couplers. So the couplers, if you have couplers for multiple different brands and so on, then when you want to couple them together, they may not couple as easily. In the same fashion, if you're making a consist, if you buy one Märklin, one PIKO, and so on, you see these ones have different sizes, but even so from different manufacturers, this one might have a slightly different variant of silver than this one and so on. So when you put them together, it may or may not look nice. So even though you can buy from different manufacturers, think about how you mix them as well and how it looks. Then the final tip I will give is don't forget when it's tricks. So you've seen my beer train run around. I think about half the cars are actually tricks. Tricks is owned by Märklin. So if you buy tricks, freight cars and so on, not the locomotives, then they are actually the same one as the Märklin ones, with the only exception is they may have a different road number or so on. And they have DC wheels, but you can get them replaced with AC wheels again. So, but other than that, you've seen in my videos, I've been running the ESUs, I've been running the Rocos, I've been using the PIKO here in previous videos. This one is actually a Brawa locomotive. I haven't even taken out of the locomotive. I haven't had challenges with any of the cars either. You've even seen me review Brawa cars, for example, and so on. The cool thing is also, here's one from Roco. It's a container car that doesn't exist in Märklin. So the good thing about looking at other brands is that you can get stuff that you might not have from Märklin. I would say in general though, I try to stick to Märklin because I can put it on the track. I have absolutely no problem. Some of the others, I may or may not have a problem. That being said, Märklin also sometimes goofs up and doesn't make the product perfect. So unfortunately, that's how it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the like button, click the little notification bell. I would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. The benefit is that you will be notified when new videos are coming. And enjoy your day.